The Brooks Cascadia Elite are Brooks' first venture into trail super shoes. Now they've had a lot of positive reviews, but I've tested these extensively through the Alps, and I can say I think there's as many good things as there are bad things about this shoe. And I don't think this is the trail super shoe that most people expect it to be. I'm going to touch on all of these good things and downsides, but first of all, let's look at what's underneath your feet. So Brooks say there's 40 mils of cushioning in the rear foot, 34 in the forefoot, giving you a 6 mil drop. But when it was cut open by Run Repeat, that wasn't necessarily what they found. They measured 38.8 mils in the rear foot, 27.3 in the forefoot, giving you 11.5 millimeter difference from back to front. So that's nearly double the drop that they've advertised. Now a lot of that comes down to where the measurement is taken. However, when I was running in this, it certainly didn't feel like a 34 millimeter cushion in the forefoot. It felt like it had a lot more ground contact feel. I'll touch on how that affected performance later on, but I want to talk to you about the midsole because it's really interesting. There's a DNA Gold midsole, which is similar to what we see in their faster Hyperion shoes for road running, except this is a dual layer. So there's two layers, and in the middle is a U-shaped plate that's made from PEBA rather than the classic carbon plate that we see in a lot of racing super shoes. Now that has a very unique purpose in trying to provide stability on the trail, and I'll discuss that later when we're talking about the stability elements within this model. But first, underneath the shoe, we've got Vibram Megagrip Elite. So that's a much stickier and a much more durable outsole that gives you excellent grip and excellent traction on wet rocks, wet gravel. It's got 3.2 millimeter lugs, which means that it's built more for moderately technical terrain rather than those really steep technical routes that you might find yourself on. And we'll touch on why that is later on. And as we move back up the shoe, there's lots of stability features in it. First of all, you've got two forms of sidewalls on the outside, on the heel and towards the midfoot, and again on the inside. So these come up, wrap around your heel, try to give extra elements of stability, and that's combined with a really stiff heel counter. Again, wrapping around your ankle, so when you initiate contact with the ground, you're getting that pronation control moments. Now the design of the dual layer midsole means that you've got a slight curve underneath your heel. Again, it means that your foot sits in it, keeps it nice and stable, and it does mean you get really nice plush ground contact feel, especially if you're a heel striker. Now the geometry of the shoe is quite aggressive. You can see we've got a really nice heel bevel at the back and a very aggressive forefoot rocker with lots of toe spring. Toe spring is where your toes are held in slight extension, which facilitates a nice push-off motion, but may not be ideal for those of you with sensitivity in the ball of the foot. There is some rigidity in the forefoot, making it quite stiff, giving you some elements of protection. And as we move up on top of the shoe, we've got a matrix Kevlar upper, which means that it's exceptional for breathability and drainage if you step into a puddle or through a stream. We've got a nice toe bumper at the front, and in terms of the fit, for me it was a true to size and length, but it is quite narrow in the midfoot and in the toe box. So it does taper quite a bit, as you'd expect, like a lot of the racing shoes are. And as you can see, we've got this nice textured lacing system, and we've got a gaiter upper to help keep out any debris. So let's start off with the positive sides of this shoe. Well, first of all, we talked about that cup sensation underneath your heel and the DNA Gold midsole. That makes for an exceptional transition if you're a heel striker. So when you initiate contact with the ground, you get really plush comfort without being unstable. So that's really nice for those longer days on your feet if you're doing up to ultra distance running. On top of the shoe, you've got an exceptionally breathable upper, and I really like the textured laces for giving you a really good lockdown on the midfoot. The gaiter was a really nice touch for keeping out that debris, but the benefit of having that gaiter affected the feel on the back of the shoe. Then the stability elements of this shoe is really unique for a trail super shoe. So the sidewalls, coupled up with the rigid heel counter, and that cup underneath your heel, make it a really stable feel when you initiate contact with the ground. Then the Trail Adapt U-shaped plate in the shoe tries to give stability whether you're moving at different directions or you stood on a rock and your foot's changing position. So it's trying to provide that adaptable torsional stability, which means that you get a relatively mobile shoe, but you still get that element of protection and rigidity in the forefoot. And that's all coupled up with an extremely broad base underneath your foot. So in fact, I would say this is more of a stable, neutral trail super shoe, which is relatively unique when we compare it to all the other super shoes on the market at the moment. Then, unfortunately, when we look at the downsides of this shoe, first of all, we've got quite a narrow fit in the midfoot and in the forefoot. That means any of you with a normal width foot or wide foot are probably going to struggle with the fit in this shoe. At the moment, it doesn't come in a wide option. Then secondly, the design of the gaiter, which is really positive for keeping things out, it means that there's extra stitching at the top of the heel cup. Now the downside of that is, rather than having lots of plush cushioning to protect your Achilles, I found that I was getting some friction points and some blistering on the back of my Achilles, which is relatively unusual for me, considering I've tested over 45 shoes this year, for instance. I haven't had any giving me any blistering at the back. So if you're someone who has Haglund's deformity, sensitivity on the back of their heel because of their Achilles, you may not enjoy how that extra stitching just rubs off the back of your heel. Then the other downside of note is the price point, coming in at €250 or $275. I really think that's a little bit steep for what you get for your money here. Yes, the cushion is really good, it's really energetic, but it's probably not as bouncy or as springy as some other shoes in the market. Now, it is a shoe more designed towards that ultra distance running rather than your faster 5K, 10K trail races, or even if you're looking at a half marathon race. I don't think it has that spring that some other trail super shoes on the market have at this price point. However, if you're looking for a shoe that covers ultra distance, has extra elements of stability that most other trail shoes in this market don't have, then this could be a really good option for some people. But you have to have the right size foot and just be aware of some potential friction at the back of the heel. So overall, a really interesting addition, some good sides, some bad sides, but let me know your opinion in the comment section below. Have you tried them out? Are you interested in picking them up? I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check them out for any sales or discounts. Otherwise, if you're new to the channel or you watch us regularly but you haven't subscribed, please consider it as a single thing that you can do for free that makes the biggest difference to the channel.